G'day and welcome to the Fair Dunkem podcast, an NBA podcast by Aussies for Aussies. My name's Jay Lewis and I'm joined today by a good mate who not only lives and breathes the Boston Celtics, but also quite recently taught me that my favourite Italian drink is pronounced Chinotto, not Chinotto. And I've been mispronouncing it La Piquetta for the last 20 years of my life. Please make him welcome my very good mate, Dan Mazzaglia. Dan Mazzaglia. Dan, how you doing, mate?
Morning, Jay. How are you, mate?
Very good. Oh, we literally 2 minutes ago before we went on, I was like, can you remind me how to pronounce your last name? Remind me. And you told me and I had it in my head and I get two lines into my notes and I forget.
I think you did it pretty well, Jay. And you used the example of La Porchetta as well. So, the CH, it's different in Italian speak. And then silent G's, you throw that into the mix with my surname, it can get a little bit tricky, man. So I think you did pretty well for a first crack.
Plus, you got a camera staring you down the eyes, and I'm like, I can barely remember how to pronounce my own name some days. No.
No, you've done well, mate. And really looking forward to the chat, mate. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be fun. Why don't you just quickly give us 30 seconds what your love of Boston, how you got into basketball, just a bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So being a bit of an old-timer, we didn't really have a lot available to us at the time. So, 10, 15 years ago in terms of being able to watch a lot of American sport. It's obviously a lot more available now, isn't it? So, but Celtics was just a big brand. It was sort of similar to being a Manchester United fan with the EPL because it was just a team that was in your face. You knew about them and then you sort of just jumped on board. So yeah, just got in and amongst it probably about a decade ago, something like that. So yeah, just love the Celtics, man. They're just my team. You've got to pick one, so I'm pretty happy with what I've gone with.
If you've been following for about 10 years, you've made it about as good of a choice. Outside of maybe Golden State, I think you've made probably about as good of a choice as you could for a 10-year run.
Yeah, well, that's right. We've made quite a few conference finals and the like, and the roster's looking pretty solid at the minute, so we might get a bit of extra joy in the next season or two with any luck.
It's going to be fun. I don't know what I've done. I'm a diehard Lakers fan. I'm wearing a Suns jersey as well, but I'm a diehard Lakers fan. And in my first 2 episodes, I brought on a Clippers fan and a Boston fan and worn a Suns jersey. So I'm just doing everything. I'm getting all the pain out of the way early, getting all the heartache of what I having to chat Boston, having to chat Clippers. But no, it's been good. It was interesting what you're saying, like how much Australians are able to follow the NBA now compared to 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I saw a stat somewhere and I can't even remember where it was, but it was something along. I think they said that outside of America, Melbourne, Australia is the biggest basketball city, like the biggest NBA following city outside of America or Canada in the world now. They're like, Melbourne, there's such a basketball culture here now. I'm not sure. It might be we want top 3 or so now, but I'm like, it does make sense. NBA's got so big the last few years over here.
Absolutely massive. The last few years as well, being on Fox or KO and being readily available.
That's it.
It's a game changer. And a lot of people have had a lot of exposure to it now. And given that basketball is just a great game, there's no surprise that a lot of people jump on it and really start to watch it. And when you think about, an hour of your time, thereabouts, it's actually quite a quick game.
It is. Once you cut out the timeouts.
Well, that's right. I mean, you can watch an NFL game and you can be there for hours. So, that might be just a bit of a criteria for people where they go, look, I like NBA. It's fast-paced. It's quick. You can get it done, in a reasonable amount of time. It's just a quality sport.
Totally. And the 10-minute highlights you can find on YouTube and stuff now, they cover the game so well. It's a great game for watching in short highlights because it is possession.
Absolutely.
So it is a great game like that. But got a lot I want to cover today. We'll talk bit of Boston in a little bit, but all right, so this will be the last episode before the regular season actually begins in about 4 days now. We're filming on a Saturday morning here. It's the 21st in Australia. Season kicks off for us Wednesday the 25th because Aussie, so we get it the next day. So we get a 9 a.m. We get the grand old 9 a.m. tip off, which is fantastic when you've got work and uni and things like that. But season kicks off next Wednesday, my Lakers taking on the reigning champs, Denver Nuggets. I'm nervous about that. KD returning to San Fran, Phoenix taking on Golden State. It's going to be a fun game. Going to be a fun season.
Oh, it's going to be a huge season, Jay. without question. Those couple of fixtures that you just mentioned there, straight off the bat, are just so exciting. I'm very, very interested to see. I mean, we obviously know what the Nuggets are. They're the champs. Lakers will always be thereabouts. But I'm curious, with the Suns as well, how that pans out with the three-headed monster that they've got going now. So
they're looking like
it'll be very interesting.
I think it was their first preseason game where they played all three. They scored like 40 or something like that in the first quarter. And it was just like, oh, okay, so they're going to be really good. Like, there's no doubting that. This could genuinely be like, the opening night could be the semifinals preview right there. That could be the Western Conference semifinals.
It's quite possible, Jay. It really is.
Like
they know how to fixture it quite well. I must say they've hit the nail on the head. I think
that's it. Well, as I said, season starts in a few days. I'm very excited. It's going to be a ripper year. Preseason has kicked off. It's been going the last couple of weeks. Did a few fun things. Wemby has taken the world by storm a little bit. He's faced off against Chet Holmgren. And surprise, surprise, 2 generational talents and went top 2 in their drafts are both good. What a shock horror news headline. That's just, hey, this guy that we all knew was really good. Turns out he's really good at basketball when you're 7'5" and can dribble through someone else's legs.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable what Wemby's doing. Oh.
Did you see the nutmeg he had the other day on Reggie Bullock?
I did.
I saw that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's 7 foot. When you're above like 6'6", you shouldn't be trying to attempt a nutmeg, and he's like 7'4". You shouldn't be attempting a nutmeg on a guard and getting away with it. I'm like, there's things when I see him, I'm like I feel like he's going to be overhyped in the first year. He'll probably be a bit of a letdown season 1 because like he'll have games where he's inefficient and like everyone's expecting him to come in. Well, we'll talk about it in a second, but people expect him to be like a top 50 player in the league first year. But it's like he's probably not going to be quite that, but there's so much talent there. And like, there was one, I was watching just the highlights of that Houston-San Antonio game in the preseason. And Alperen Sengun's trying to back him down and does this beautiful little post move, gets to a nice hook. He didn't even leave the ground. He just swats and it just sends it into the third row. And that's against the center. So he's a freak.
It's just unfair. It's actually really unfair what his skill set is. And, over time when he nurtures it and really hones his craft, it's just unstoppable. It's just, you have these players over time with a specific build and skill set that are just, it's just never really happened before.
No.
That's basically how I see it with him. It's scary.
I think the best way I can, like when I see, the one that gets me is his jumper because it looks fluid and he hits it at a good clip. And like in his first game, he had one where he comes off a screen and a catch and shoot and nails a 3-pointer. I'm like, he's 7'4" or whatever it is doing that. Like Kevin Durant made a living off being 6'11" and having a jumper that no one can just saying, actually, no one can block this. So I'm just going to take it whenever I want, regardless of if you're in my face. And then add like 5 inches to that height. And that's what he could be. It's just like scary. Plus being brilliant defensively.
What more can you say?
That's it. It's like
you've got the offensive side, he's got the defensive side. It's just a matter of what will it be in the end. That's all it is. He's got everything on him.
He does come down to someone who's like, if he can stay healthy, he'll be good for a very, very long time. He's not going to, be someone that none of the skills I'm worried about. The only things I'm like is one, as long as if he doesn't, he'll bulk up eventually, but like, I don't want him to become a bit of a Kristaps where it's like, oh, he gets nervous to go on the paint because he gets a bit bullied by like a Steven Adams and just sits outside taking threes. I want the threes to be like he belts you in the paint and backs you down 4 times and then the next one steps out and takes a 3 and it's like, okay, what can we actually do against this guy? But that's as long as he's got the right mentality and he takes care of his body, I think he'll be fine. He's going to be generational.
Absolutely generational. The only concern, like as you said, with the size, you just worry that it's 7'5", and are you going to have those injuries? I suppose. I don't know.
My knees ache and I'm 6'2". Like if I'm walking for too long, I'm like, I can't imagine like the amount of pressure you have when you're like 7'5".
The legs just go on forever, Jay.
They really.
So, how much they're going to get battered? Oh. You just don't know. But like you said, if he stays healthy, the sky's the limit for that kid. It could be just absolutely anything.
My main concern is he's going to have this like freak knee injury one day where what happens is because he's so tall, there's going to be like a 5'10" point guard who tries to get around a screen. But because of his height, just goes straight into the side of his knee and he does his ACL off impact of like someone trying to box him out, but like their box out goes below his hip line sort of thing. It's like not a dirty play, but it's like they tunnel him by just being shorter than him. Like that's the one thing. That's the one thing I see happening one day. Like I just hope it doesn't happen.
Just got him by default. Just a height thing. That's all it was. It's like forehead was at Wemba's kneecap. You know, there's not much you can do about that.
My family's got 2 dogs. We've got a big Great Dane and this tiny little Jack Russell. And like the Jack Russell like run between the legs of the Great Dane when they're playing outside. Like they're playing chasing. And he'd be like doing little laps of him. Like that's sort of what I see. Like a point guard would be like, I'm just waiting for the day someone tries to dribble through his legs, not the ball, but like someone tries to duck down. Like a little point guard tries to get low and like go
just run under.
Go tunnel.
Be one of the things the best plays you'd ever see too. No,
if you can pull that off,
basically full body nutmeg and then drives into the paint or another dunk, that'd be unbelievable.
Just like reaches behind and swats the ball like without looking. Oh
no! Looking forward to see what
it's going to be fun.
Can do, mate. Yeah.
Other things. Quickly mention it, James Harden yet to suit up for the Sixers. Obviously, he's according things I've seen, he's been at training camp. There's been no major issues. They've got one game that's happening in about an hour now, Philly, their final game, and he was supposed to be lining up for that, but apparently now he's not even in Philly. He's left training camp again. He's gone somewhere else to have a bit of me time. He's away from team due to personal matters now. About 4 days away from the season, which is just what you want when you're a new coach. Your second best player to be away, basically saying, trade me. I hate your GM. I'll never play for you again. So that'll be interesting to see what happens out of that. Discussed the Dame trade last week with Flynn. But one thing I didn't discuss in that, I discussed it from the Portland side, the Milwaukee side. We discussed the Sun side a little bit. But we never really got into Boston, who made this small trade for a guy named Jrue Holiday. And I did that on purpose because I'll be chatting through that with Dan in a minute. We'll be doing a bit of a Boston season preview. But first, I want to get to my favorite part. One of my favorite parts of every off season. And there's a reason I made a podcast so I can do it as well, is those like overreacting little rankings and tier lists and people who are bored in the off season and need to find a way to make content. So they make some top list just purely for the sake of getting people triggered. And I know I'm going to be doing the same thing within the next like 3 episodes. So I can't complain. I've like got 2 episodes in. I'm like out of content. Time to do a rankings list where we put LeBron at 9 all time, so we can get everyone arguing in the comments. It's the way of the content creator. When in doubt, just say LeBron's better than MJ or LeBron's worse than Kobe, and you know you'll get one fan base riled up quick enough.
It's the magic recipe for it, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Honestly, just say LeBron, and that'll get people going enough.
Basically.
But I want to discuss the unnecessarily controversial preseason predictions. There was ESPN's top 100 playlist came out over the last week or week and a half or so. Been having to read through that, and I'm going to do exactly what they want us to do, which is overreact to it and discuss it and break it down. Dan, I know you've been having to read through, look at a few names. I was just reading through the names and just like, there's just some plays when you read like, oh, that seems high. And then you see players like underneath them and you're like, oh, that they were all players above. And we'll get into it in a second. One thing I do want to just note, because I got caught on this, I thought it was a ranking when I initially read it, when I'd seen all the tweets and Instagram posts about, oh my days, this person is at like ranked 90th. They have said they were asked to rank players based on their predicted contributions, both quality and their quantity, for the 2023-24 season only. So it was a little thing. I thought it was based on where they are right now, but it's a prediction of how much they'll contribute for the next season, which did change a couple things in my mind where I'm like, okay, that makes a bit more sense how some players can be where they are, but still, they've way overvalued rookies is my first pick. But Dan, do you have anyone you want to start with? Any names you want to start with?
I was curious about what the criteria or the matrix was as well to be able to produce this list. If what you're saying is it's a contribution to what this season is,
Yeah.
the first one that just screams out to me is Ja Morant at 35.
Yeah. That was on my list.
Look, if it's just about this season and forget about personal issues, Ja's top 10 for me almost. Let's go 15 if we have to. But for him to be sitting at 35 is absolutely insane to me. Insane.
Ja at 35, as soon as I read that, they had like Brandon Ingram, like 7 spots above him. And I'm like, I understand they did say it's based on contribution, both quality and quantity. So like he does miss the 25 games. It does drop him down a few spots for me potentially. But like that's dropping him from like 15 to 20. Because like the thing is that he's missing the first 25 games. It's not like it's not like an Anthony Davis or a Zion or LeBron or Kawhi where it's like he's probably going to miss 25 games, but you have no idea when they're going to be. It's not he's injury prone. It's not like Davis where like he's only going to play 55 games, but we have no idea whether he'll be healthy come the playoffs. Ja, the 25 games he's missing, it's the start, and then he's back for the rest of the season. He hasn't had an injury-ridden career, so there's no way he's the 35th most impactful player this year. Like
insane.
There's no way like you can have Brandon Ingram and like Paolo Banchero above him in terms of most impact. Like he's led the Grizzlies to a 2 seed like 2 years in a row, or a top seed 2 years in a row. Like he's a good. He's a genuinely. I feel like he's going to be one of those players that I think is going to be like the most slept on player this year because no one's discussing him at the moment for obvious reasons. But like, come like 25 games into the season, as long as Memphis can stay like 500, like 12-12 in those 25 games, they're going to be a playoffs team easily.
Oh, without question. Being a Celtics fan as well, I think with the Grizzlies getting Marcus Smart, it's a great acquisition. So, even if he's starting at the point for those 25 games, that's not a bad deal. And then when Ja comes back and Marcus Smart is in that rotation coming off the bench, they're in pretty good shape. And then Bane running being the other guard as well. That it's just
they're a good team.
By,
how is Ja at 35? I want to quickly. I've got all this stuff here. I want to try and find where they put Jaren Jackson Jr. as well, where they put him above or below Ja. I'm having a look at the moment. They had Jaren Jackson at 31.
While you're doing that, being a Lakers fan, right, that you are, is AD top 10? Is that just a little bit too much? Top 20 maybe, but it's an opinion, of course.
To be honest, as a Lakers fan, I would put AD above LeBron at this point in terms of value. LeBron is amazing. LeBron is a slightly better offensive player, but what I saw Davis do in the playoffs as a defender, I saw guys like Ja Morant and Desmond Bane for a whole series just not even avoid the paint, just refuse to even go into the key. And when you see guys like Ja drive in, look up, and turn his head, Ja's like the most fearless finisher we possibly have at the moment. And he was scared to attack Davis. He would kick out and give up or just settle for a jump shot. And the impact he has defensively, when he's healthy, he's up there with Giannis and Draymond as the best defender in the league for me. So for that alone, his defensive value, I think but there's also a point where they said the value added quantity. And I don't know if you're taking into account how healthy they are, you cannot have Davis top 10. Like that's the fact. I need to see him actually be healthy for a whole year. Like I cannot be putting him above like Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, Jimmy Butler, if we're taking into account health.
Yeah.
If we're not taking into account how many games they play, Ja Morant cannot be 35 and Kawhi Leonard cannot be 24. If we are taking it into account, Davis cannot be 10. Like that feels completely out of whack for me that it's like one guy that's injury prone gets top 10 and one guy that's going to miss games gets like 35.
Yeah. I mean, another one who I love Paul George.
Yeah.
But I think 18 is a bit
high.
A bit high. He's
playoff
17
key.
spots to get Yeah, he's 17 spots ahead of Jar. As a bit of
No,
a measuring stick, I just find that a little bit silly.
I thought
A
that was.
little bit.
I also thought I love him, but I thought Tyrese Halliburton at 21 was pretty high as well. That's like he's a great player, but to have him 14 spots ahead of Jar, 13 ahead of Kyrie, 8 ahead of Trae Young, I actually don't mind that. 3 spots ahead of Kawhi.
Mm.
They put Halliburton closer to Damian Lillard than they have to Ja Morant.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy.
It's
a bit crazy when you put it like that.
When you put it like that, I love Halliburton. He was amazing for Team USA. He's a fantastic player. I think I'm big on Indiana. For my like season predictions I'm going to do for the next week, they're my surprise pick that I see them making the playoffs. Like, I reckon they're going to be really good.
Everyone tends to forget about the Pacers. They just sort of make up the numbers in a way, but they're actually a very, very solid roster this year.
And I think they're actually built really well as well. Like, they're built to be quick. They're not built to be like, they're not just got good players. They've got guys I think will work well together. They've got shooting. They've got guys that can play defense. Bringing in Bruce Brown, massive for them.
Great acquisition that one is. Bruce Brown, that's huge.
He's going to be massive. And I think they've got so much speed. Like, you got Halliburton, Mathurin, Bruce Brown, Obi Toppin, Buddy Hield. Like, if they can get in a fast break, they're going to be the best fast break team in the league next year. They're going to be so quick.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting, that roster. That's good.
Another one I want to talk about, we'll keep going with these guards who maybe have been a bit under. James Harden at 43.
Yeah.
With Tyrese Maxey at 42. So they put Tyrese Maxey one spot ahead of James Harden. What are your thoughts on that?
I love what Tyrese brings. Okay. I think, if I was managing Philly, I'm happy to get James Harden out and just build around Embiid and Tyrese. I reckon Tyrese is a proper baller. I think we all agree with that.
Tyrese, he brings such speed to them that they need. Like, he's so good at that.
I think it just says more about where Harden's at, to be honest.
That's true.
Because he is a generational player as well. And whether or not he cares about this, but he's hurting his legacy. He really, really is. The way he's conducted himself to get out of Houston originally, and then how he's gone with Brooklyn, and now the Sixers. Oh. I mean, I'm not surprised if no one really wants to trade for him. And his value, I think, will be diminished as a result. The GMs can play a little bit of hardball when it comes to it. I think, anyway. I mean, what do you think the Clippers would have to give if it was him that they get if they get James Harden? What are your thoughts on that?
I've been having a look at it a bit. I think I actually talked to Flynn a little bit about this last week. I reckon with Harden, the issue for me is like if you give up, say, 2 first-round picks, a pick swap, and Terrence Mann or something like that. So it's like they give up base, or maybe they give up all the picks, the salary, but they keep Terrence Mann. Something like that. So it's like 3 picks or something. My concern with it is like, I would do that, but the thing I took to Flynn was like, say they do that. Say like it comes out in an hour that trade goes through. So they keep Mann, but they lose all their picks and all their salary that they can put together. Then they get to the middle of like the start of Feb and they're like 26-19. So they're going well, but like Kawhi's been healthy, Harden's been okay, Paul George has missed a couple weeks here and there. And suddenly like the Bulls are really bad and DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine are on the trade block. Or the Raptors are really bad and Pascal Siakam's on the trade block. And OG Anunoby. I'm like, the picks you could use for Harden, I would rather, you've only got one last move you can make if you're the Clippers with this core, with the picks and the salary, using it on Harden. If suddenly you get to midseason, like you could have got a DeRozan or a LaVine or like a Karl Anthony Towns or a Siakam, I think they'd be kicking themselves for using all those picks on James Harden at that point. That's my concern is like, you've only got one lot of picks left and one lot of salary left that you can use. Do you want it to be Harden that you go after?
Probably not. Probably not. I'm sick of him, so I can imagine why a lot of teams would be.
What made his way through 3 teams now in like 4 years, and he's a free agent at the end of the year. Like, what's the guarantee that he doesn't just get upset at Kawhi or PG and then decide, or Ty Lue, and then say, actually, I'm going back to Houston in the offseason, or actually, I'm going to go play for Indiana or whatever. Like, he's so unpredictable at this point that unless I've got like a guarantee that he's like got 4 years, he's going to sign like a 4 year. But as we found, extensions mean nothing. Players just demand a trade and they get the trade 2 weeks later, whatever they want.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And as you said, you make a good point, Jay. You know, to virtually throw the kitchen sink thereabouts, to be able to get him in for a year for him just to go. You know, I don't think he's going to do a Kawhi at Toronto and just be there for the year and give him a ring and then get out of there. No. You know, it's not something that James is going to do. So, it'll just be interesting to see what happens there. But he is just a very, very frustrating player at the minute.
And even like with the Clippers, I don't think they can afford to do a Toronto. Toronto knew the pieces they had, like, we're good enough to compete. Yes. We'd got there a couple of years in a row. We'd got to the conference finals a couple times. We just need something to get that next step over. And that was why I think they sort of knew if we can get Kawhi even for 1 year, we back ourselves in. The Clippers can't say that, like, we need someone that for the next 3 years, whichever of those 3 years, PG and Kawhi happen to both be healthy in the playoffs, we need them there. That could be 4 years away. That could be this year. That could be 3. Like, we need someone that will be there for a few years because you just don't know when that healthy season's going to arrive.
Could never happen either, though, James. Could never happen either, though. It's quite possible.
I'm more on the idea of wait till mid-season and see if you get one injury, then maybe just blow it up a little bit because, like, they're in a bad state. And both Kawhi and PG are both free agents at the end of this year as well. The worst thing that could happen is trade all your picks for Harden and then lose like 2 out of Harden, PG, and Kawhi in free agency. And suddenly you've got no picks, no salary. I would be, and because even if you get Harden, I'm not taking them over Denver. Harden, PG, Kawhi, even all healthy. I'm not taking them over Denver. I don't think I'm taking them over the Lakers. I'm not taking them over Phoenix. And I'm certainly not taking them over Milwaukee or Boston if they actually get there. So, like, are you really going to trade your future just to get to the conference finals or just to get, like, to make to lose by 7, to lose in 7 instead of 4 in the semis? Like,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But, do the Clippers say, hey, we're actually pretty content with getting to a final, to a Western Conference final or something like that? Is that what they're striving for? I don't know. Yeah, they can go, well, we've saved face now. We're pretty happy with that result. We haven't been there quite yet. So
yeah. Well, they made one conference finals with the year Kawhi did his ACL in the semis, and they got swept in 4 by Phoenix. But like,
oh, correct. Yes,
that's basically.
But it's quite rare, though, isn't it?
That's their goal. A couple other things I want to quickly hit on while we're on the Clippers. Russ at 94. Russell Westbrook at 94.
Oh, dude. Look, I know there are Russ haters out there. That I understand that. It's all part of sport, okay? But he's an MVP.
Yeah.
I look at it like this as well. I've got Grant Williams at 97.
Yeah.
So Russ is 4 spots higher than that.
Correct.
Which is just insane. It really is insane.
I love, like, I do understand there is a point with Russ that I'm like, I think he is a bit of a floor raiser, not a ceiling raiser. Like, because of his play style, he's never going to be the guy that can necessarily go in. You couldn't just throw him on like a Milwaukee and he's going to work perfectly with a Dame and a Giannis. Like, he does need, he'll be fantastic. He could take an Orlando or a Detroit to 40 wins. Like, that's what he can do. He's so good at. I do think it's like, when I look, Jalen Green's at 80. I'm like, Tobias Harris is at 83. Clint Capella's at 84. I'm like, I'd still rather Russ than those guys. Like, and that's after a year and a half of having to watch him on the Lakers. Like, I understand he's not going to be the best if you're trying to build a title contender necessarily, but he's still so valuable. That one
it's fantastic. It's a gross injustice. It really is.
That one got me. Do you have any other final pieces of this you wanted to discuss?
Look, I going back to Wemby as well, I think potential and reality are 2 different things. Okay. And I think, was it 47?
He was 47.
I mean,
you got Wemby at 47, and just to give a few names that are behind him in the 10 or 12 slots, you're saying he's going to be better than LaMelo Ball, who was at 48, Draymond Green at 55, Zion at 57, Kristaps at 62, Rudy Gobert's at 64, Austin Reeves at 66. You got Chris Paul at 76. There's a few. I cannot say Wemby's going to be more valuable than Draymond Green this year. Like, Draymond's the best defender in the league, in my opinion. Or maybe number 2 behind Giannis, but...
Oh, he's right up there, Jay. He really is.
And you're saying, no, when this rookie is going to... That was high for me.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is. I think, I love Scotty Barnes as well.
Yeah.
And he's at 63. So... I don't know. I mean, these are what lists are designed to do, as you said before. It's all about creating that conversation.
It does.
But some of them are just really out of whack, in my opinion. Yeah.
Again,
Grant Will. If I had to replace one with Grant Will being the Celtics, man, it's Al Horford. They were basically in the same position.
And Grant fell out of the playoff rotation. And Al Horford was...
Yeah, and he's been traded. And Al Horford's a great defender. And he was top 2 in 3-point percentage.
Al Horford not making the top 100 was ridiculous to me.
Staggering to me.
I also thought Robert Williams III at 89 was way too low. They had Clint Capella, Tobias Harris, Cam Johnson, Nikola Vucevic, Kevon Looney all ahead of him. I'd take Robert Williams over all of those guys. I think he's...
yeah.
I think so.
I like Vooch. I do like Vooch still. But he's higher than Kevon Looney.
As a defender, Clint Capella... Robert Williams is just a better Clint Capella. Like, they play the same role, the same position. He's just better at it. I thought he was way too low.
It's harsh.
One of the last ones I'll touch on, Shai at 8. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't mind it, I really like Shai.
He's good.
He averaged 31.
He's special.
He really is, You think about the Clippers again, how much they might lament that. But
if that trade happened today, OKC would be the ones giving up the picks with Paul George to get Shai. But instead, they got... How do you manage to get back 6 picks in a trade where you also get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and you didn't give up prime Kobe or prime MJ or like...
Yeah.
That.
Look, Shai, it's kind of high, but it's thereabouts with Shai. I'm absolutely fine with that. That OKC roster... I'm actually quite curious to see how that pans out. There's a lot of young weapons there. I think Giddey was sort of underrated a little bit in the list too. He's good. He's got a great skill set. So, it'll be interesting to see what OKC.
Did he see much of the World Cup this year? The Aussies in the World Cup?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Not a hell of a lot, but some of it, yes.
Giddey he's special. When he just decides I'm going to score. He was going up against the NBA talent and just saying, I'm just going to score 25 on you. Like, that's what they got in their back pocket. They got Chet, they got Shai, they got Jalen Williams, they got Lou Dort, great defender.
Yep.
They've got Pacers. Pacers are my pick to rise in the East. I think Thunder are my pick to rise in the West at the moment.
Good shouts. But it's out of sight, out of mind. No one really thinks about OKC.
No.
That's indicative by the list, I think.
What about KD at 7 and then Tatum at 6? As a Boston fan, what's your thoughts of putting Tatum over KD?
Pretty happy to see it, I must say. Well, look, I mean, you've got to compare the two. I mean, obviously, KD is one of the greatest we'll ever see. So,
but for this year,
respectfully, look, the sky's the limit with Tatum, though. Jay, I really think that he's 25. 25, yeah. 25.
He's 19.
He's had a lot of experience now. Got his forever. Got the team to a couple of finals. They've been thereabouts for the last 5 or 6 years since he's been there. Him and Brown are fantastic. So Tatum can go to the next level, I think, this year. He's had a tremendous year last year. He averaged 30. It was the best since Bird.
I actually
he's
don't
got some pieces around him to help him,
I think KD is fantastic, but I don't mind it Tatum above him or next to him. I think they're both... Because, I think he is one of the most underrated guys. I can't believe Luka gets at 4, okay?
Yep.
Luka had that amazing playoff run where he got them to the conference finals once.
Yep.
Beat Phoenix, became Devin Booker's dad. That was a fan. As a Lakers fan, that was fantastic to witness. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed every second of that.
It was great to see.
It was poetry in motion for me. Just sitting back watching them go down by 40 in the second quarter. I was tears of joy. But like Luka's had one playoff series where he's got them to the conference finals. He missed the playoffs altogether last year. The team was in a bit of shambles. But like Tatum in like 6 years at Boston has gotten to conference finals like 4 years, made it to a finals. I feel like if that was anyone else, they'd be like, oh, he's the best. Like he'd be considered number one. At like 25, he's made, I think, 4 conference finals, led a team to the conference finals 4 times, led them to the finals once. I think he gets slapped on a bit when it's like the best player in the league. Just like he's not best in the league, but like he's done more than Giannis has done in terms of conference finals appearances, and same number of finals appearances. Obviously, Giannis got the title, but he's made more conference finals than Giannis, made more than Luka, but somehow he's like always considered that step below. Like there is a bit of eye test in that, but I think he's good.
Look, I think they would. And you're right on a lot of points, Jay, with that question. I just think with Luka, you know, he hasn't had much of a team around him.
That's true. The one guy that was top 30 that he played with, they let go to New York.
Yeah, and got rid of Brunson,
They lost Brunson, got rid of Kristaps.
It'll be interesting to see, you know, what happens with Kyrie, you know, as a bit of a duo full season. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting once again. But yeah,
that's not to say Luka is bad at all. I love Luka. I see Luka.
It's unbelievable.
I like every team. I've had the games where I've had to witness Luka he's like a chef carving up, like cutting a meal. Like with our defense, it's like, oh, yep, there. Who's he going to just manipulate this time and just watch him control 40 straight points?
It's like when he's cutting things on a board as a chef. He's so precise and he's just so smooth.
Like a surgeon, just goes through and just manipulates into the detail.
It is. He is a surgeon. It's just, he's amazing to watch. And that's why I appreciate him being where he is. If he was in another side, if Luka was at Boston, for instance, and I'm not taking away from Tatum.
No.
It's quite possible already that
he'd have a
ring would be there.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Without question. You look at the team around Luka at the Celtics, you compare that with what he's had at the Mavs, they're poles apart. They really are. And, you know, what would Tatum be like at the Mavericks?
That's
with
true.
That squad.
That's true.
You know, it'd be something to discuss, I suppose. It'd be curious.
I think
curiosity.
It would be. He has had a great team. He's had Brown the whole time. He's had Marcus Smart up till this year. Al Horford, got vets. You got shooters. When you're talking about how like Luka carves the team up like a surgeon, it reminded me of this tweet I saw. I just looked up where they said Jokic with his patented panic seal on a beach move, leading to an undeniably wet 3 that makes the defender consider a career change. And that's so true about Jokic. Yeah, has the ability to look like he's as out of control as any player ever. And then, actually, no, he's just going to drop this in straight away.
He's like watching every dad at a barbecue, you know that? He just sort of labours around and just drops him from anywhere. It's a Tim Duncan thing.
The old dad that played 50 years ago and just huffing and puffing gets his way over there, just throws in a sky hook over, left-handed sky hook that drops in from 20 feet.
That's it.
Last one we'll discuss.
I think he had the MVP last year too, personally. I love Embiid, but...
Jokic, yeah. Jokic is my guy.
Stiff.
Well,
sorry to cut
on
you off.
Jokic, I just want to... Last one I want to discuss. Jokic at 2, Giannis at 1. What are your thoughts on that? I went back and
should be the other way.
I think it should be the other. Like, Giannis is amazing, but Jokic is Jokic. And I think that... So I saw him... Maybe this is a bit of, like, bias as well for my team, because I had to witness what he did to the Lakers. And it was hurtful. There was literally ones where I remember, I think Davis was like coming away just shaking his head because he got to about 0.7 seconds on the shot clock. And he took like a turnaround fadeaway 3 over the outstretched arm of Davis. And it's just like, and it was just pure silk. And I'm like, there was points with Jokic. I'm like, I actually don't know what we can do right now. There's no way of defending him. He's just, he's 3 steps ahead and his passing is beyond elite. He's the best playmaker in the league. He's the best shooting big maybe in the league. He can dribble. The 2-man game between him and between him and Jamal Murray. It's I think
he's the best duo, Jay. To be honest,
I was
those two
wondering that the other day. Damon Giannis or Jamal and Jokic.
Oh no, you got to take Murray and
I think you got to take the guys you've seen do it.
The pedigree's there. Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And, you know, when you compare Jokic as well with with Giannis, as great as Giannis is, can't shoot the three.
Yep.
And isn't as much of a playmaker, obviously, as what Jokic is. Jokic does it everywhere.
Yep.
So,
I think
and he's
Jokic,
one of the most recent, so he's got to be on top.
I often come back to who would be easier to build a team around. I'm like, if I just had that player, would I rather try and compensate for Nikola Jokic's defense, which is tough with the center, but he's not a bad defender. He's just not like going to be Bam or, AD or someone.
Yeah.
But I would much rather work. You could put basically anyone who has basketball smarts on the court with Nikola Jokic and they're going to work well. You've seen it this year. Put someone like Bruce Brown, even though he's not the best shooter, he'll work well because he'll cut at the right time. KCP, they'll work well with a Jokic. Whereas Giannis, you really need guys that can shoot, you need guys that can dribble, you need guys that can pass. There's a lot more things you need to make up for with Giannis compared to Jokic.
Well, that's it. You've got to get Giannis out of jail in a way with those particular areas. So if Giannis could just pull up and drill him from three, he is simply unstoppable. And if he's getting double or triple teamed, then he can actually make a decent play as well and dish off to someone.
If he could make the passes Jokic could, he'd be unstoppable as well. It's just that.
What do you do?
With Giannis,
and Jokic can.
With Giannis, I know that in the end, I can just throw 4 guys in his way and just hope that the pass is going to be slow enough we have time to rotate around. Jokic, I'm like, if you let him play one-on-one, he's going to cook you. If you double him, he's going to be looking straight off into the fans' eyes and I feel like there'd be so many times. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more where like a defender's defending Jokic like in the post and Jokic just passed the ball without him realizing and the defender just keeps bumping him for like 3 or 4 seconds more, not realizing that the ball's gone in the basket behind him. Like it is.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Like, that's him.
It's unbelievable.
I want to move on real quick to your favorite team. And that is the Boston Celtics. We're talking a bit about them before with Jason Tatum. Had a big offseason. A very big offseason for a team that just made a conference finals. Don't often see this much change, but they lost a few guys. They lost Marcus Smart, Heart and Soul. They lost Grant Williams. They lost the other Williams, Robert Williams III. We've discussed a few of those in the rankings. Malcolm Brogdon as well. But they brought in Kristaps Porzingis, who is a 7'3" shooter and defender for a team that already likes to take a lot of threes. Possibly the perfect center you could ever have. Jrue Holiday, who, in my opinion, might be the best perimeter defender in the league, a top 5 to 10 defender already. O'Shea Brissett, Delonte Banton. And I'm not reading this because I'm reading everyone. I'm just reading them because they're like probably the 7th, 8th guy in your rotation at the moment. So if people are asking who's O'Shea Brissett, I've been asking some similar questions recently about the end of our Boston's bench. But also re-signed Jaylen Brown and Peyton Pritchard. He'd be like top 3 if I had to bet on who was going to try that Wemby full body nutmeg. I think I'd put Peyton. I'd have him like top 3 in my odds. Would be Peyton Pritchard. He just seems like the sort of guy that would duck down on his knees and try to dribble through. What's your overall thoughts on the offseason? You lost Smart, but bringing in Holiday and Porzingis. What are your thoughts? Give me how you've been feeling the last couple of months watching it all play out.
Yeah, look, initially you'd obviously be pretty upset with losing Smart, being the heart and soul. He's been a Boston all his life. It's all he really knows. In saying that, if it's like for like and I'm swapping him out for Jrue, for instance, I'm absolutely doing that. Jrue is a fantastic defender, and as is Smart, but Jrue can also shoot a little bit better, in my opinion. And I just think he's a better playmaker. So when you've got guys around him, like your Browns, your Tatums, your Horfords, your Porzingises, your Derek Whites, when he can really facilitate that quite often for a lot of the game, it's a fantastic swap. I'm happy to take that.
I think Marcus Smart has always been the leader. Like, that's been his role. And that was his role when it was the young Boston team, was like, take control. But there was points where, like, end of games, he would take control and like, no, just sit in the corner and leave it to the Jays. But he would take so many shots.
So frustrating. He'd have the ball at various points at the last minute.
It's just like, dude,
stop it.
Yes, maybe 4 years ago in the 18-19, you want him to be a facilitator and setting up, but not now. Like the Jays, now I want Tatum and Brown to be the leaders of this team. I want them to be the on-court leaders. And I think Jrue Holiday has worked with Giannis. He's worked with Anthony Davis. He's worked with players who are better than him before. And he knows when to say, no, this isn't my time. I'm giving the ball up. I know how to play off of other good players. And I think offensively in the last 5 minutes of the game, with Brown and Tatum, I'd rather have Holiday than Smart. And I think
without question. As we said, with Smart having the ball in the late stages of particular games was just a little bit frustrating. I also think that for Tatum, he was in the background for a while, and I think, he'd have his hand up and say that he wants to be the team leader. It's his time now.
It is.
So you can't have that with Smart essentially in the way. And I love Smart, but if Smart was going to stay, it's not Jason Tatum's team. So it is time now to sort of close that chapter and say, all right, Tatum, it's yours. You've got Brown, you've got Jrue, and Porzingis. I mean,
and I think there's a point as well for me. I've always been a believer that it's not a 1A, 1B. Like, I love Jaylen Brown, but I think it's more a 1 and then a 2 in terms of Tatum and Brown. But as long as Smart was the leader, it was always going to end up being a bit of 1A, 1B, my turn, your turn, Tatum, Brown. But if Tatum can be, empowered as that leader and say, this is your team, it does create a bit more of that hierarchy that I think was needed. There was points last year, where I think Brown was just had too much of the ball at the end of the games. I know it's a bit of a joke, but he just can't dribble on his left hand. And I can't have someone who can't dribble on his left hand. I'm happy for him to be working off of Tatum. There's great plays where Tatum drives, collapses the defense, kick it out to Brown, let him make a play off of Tatum, but not.
Yeah.
Whereas when Marcus Smart's the leader, there's not that real hierarchy between. I think it's closer to being Tatum is 1, and then Holiday, Brown, and Porzingis are 2A, 2B, 2C. The three of them will be that 2 tier. Maybe more 2A, 2B with Holiday and Brown, and then Porzingis is your 3 or your 4. But I think it's I see Brown and Holiday's roles being more similar this year, and Tatum just being that true number 1, which I think is good for them.
I think too that Holiday is going to instill a lot into Brown and give him a lot of guidance. I really think that will happen. And
that's good. He's
going to be better for it. And he's got his extension now, Brown. And at one point was the highest paid player in the NBA ever. You can thank the CBA for that. But I think I'm really excited to see what Holiday can actually do with Brown in really building him up, because I think Brown, as a guard as well, could potentially be a better playmaker, obviously. And I think that's something Holiday can help with as well. I really do. So
I think
we shall see.
Their playmaking.
But you're right in saying though, sorry, Jay, that Tatum is 1, and then you've got your Brown and your Holiday, just a nice little line underneath. How that sort of goes, I'm not 100% sure. But it's Tatum's team now, and it's time for him to really take the take it by the scruff of the neck and really dominate. And I think he will. I think he'll get better than what he was last year, to be honest. So
that's it.
We'll see.
I think he's ready for it. We've seen him in big moments make big plays. We've seen him do it. He can do it. He dropped.
I think when he walks around knowing it's his team, I think that gives him the extra,
totally.
just to get it really done, so...
I think it's going to be really good. I'm excited to see Jrue. I think you need playmaking. I think he's a better playmaker than Marcus Smart as well. I was having a look the other day.
Without question.
He's an underrated playmaker. I was looking at his stats the other day. It's he's had last few years, 7.4 assists per game, 6.8, 6.1, 6.7, 7.7. He had he's had 5 seasons in his career where he's averaged over 7 assists a game.
Yep. And you complement that with the fact that he's 47 from the field as opposed to Smart is about 41. And from 3, I think it's 38 to 33.
I trust him a whole lot more than Marcus Smart shooting the ball. He's going to be a fantastic pick for you guys. My one concern with Boston, if every team is healthy, I have Boston winning the title right now. Personally, I have them just over Denver, just over Milwaukee. I think your top 6 of the Jays, Holiday, Porzingis, Horford, and Derek White is the best in the league. You cannot compete with that. All 6 of those guys could be a top 3 player on a title team, just about, sort of thing. Maybe not Horford now because of age, but they're all so good. My concern is what happens after that in the rotation, because you're currently 2 injuries away from having Sam Hauser start. Not in the rotation, starting.
It's crazy, isn't it?
So it's that's my concern. That's the only reason if I was to actually pick, I'd probably take Milwaukee. It's just because you have to bet on one of your top 6 being injured. And if you're you're one or two injuries away from literally having like the rest of your bench is like Peyton Pritchard, Svi Mikhailiuk, Luke Cornett with the patented jump and block the rim from their eyes, which I think is just the best thing I've ever seen. Sam Hauser, Delonte Banton. Like, the bench drops off very quickly. Like, I know you'll probably be able to make a trade to pick someone up to get to 7. Yes. If you're healthy, I have you winning. But what are you concerned about the depth? Let's start with that.
A little bit. Yes. And in terms of how the 5 potentially start as well. So who's coming off the bench? Is it Derek White, or is Horford going to be in this? Your 6th man? And then you've got Peyton Pritchard who has got an extension as well now.
Yeah.
Yes, he has. So
yeah, that's all right.
And he's actually played pretty well in the preseason. He's averaging 20. He's shooting the lights out. So
he's a good
if
player.
He takes it to that next level, I'm happy with that. But then, Banton, Mikhailiuk. We've got Gabriel as well, winning Gabriel.
I like it. I like winning Gabriel. He's thin. He is an energy. Trust me, as a Lakers fan who's watched him for 2 years, you'll grow to love him in like games 50 to 65 of the season. He'll be the guy with like the most energy on the court, and you'll see like Celtics fans like, oh, we need him in the playoff rotation, and then you get to the playoffs like, oh, maybe we don't need Wendy and Gabriel in the playoff rotation after all, once everyone else is actually going. He'll go at 100% the whole time. He's an absolute energy guy. I loved him. I was sad Lakers going to bring him back.
I'm happy with that. But when I look at the bench, if it's like Derek White versus Connaughton, and then you got Pritchard versus maybe Campaign, it's Banton and Jay Crowder perhaps.
Yeah.
And then you've got Gabriel, and then you've got Bobby Porter still.
Yeah, like that. That's
so,
the thing.
There's a bit to sort of fret.
There's a couple depth concerns, and I think for me it's just that point where I was like Sam Hauser was something like, oh, that's okay, you can have him in the rotation. No, that's like 30 minutes a game if you've got one injury. Like, one of those guys has to be playing like 25, 30 minutes in the playoffs, basically.
Yes,
or not 20, 30, but probably 20 to 25. You can still make it like. You might be able to make a trade and pick someone up, who can be that 7th guy. You can buy in the buyout market after the trade deadline. You'll probably pick up some backup big who gets bought out from, something like a Kelly Olynyk or someone like that. But
take that.
Exactly. So you're not that far away. And
Kelly, welcome back.
If you can stay healthy, you'll be like your top 6. I'd take over any top 6 in the league in terms of like rotation. Like, Denver's close. Milwaukee's close.
I was going to say Denver's 6 is pretty great, but then I forget about Bruce Brown.
But you forget when they had Bruce Brown, I'd probably take Denver's 6, but like they're 5, and then there's a bit of they've also got bench issues. But who do you have starting? You're talking about if you were Joe Mazzulla made you coach for the day, who are you starting game 1? Who's your 5?
I would have Jrue, Derek White, Brown, Tatum, Porzingis.
Yeah.
And then we can shore up the defense with the bench with Al, I'd say.
Okay.
Only because he's 37, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I don't think he can just do, your 30-odd minutes almost. I'm happy for him to come off the bench, shore up the defense, hit a few threes, and work in tandem with Peyton Pritchard, for instance. I'm not 100% sure. But then...
My initial thought was Derek White. I would say Derek White was just because I wanted someone who could sort of be a bit of a playmaker, could sort of run the offense a little bit off the bench. Could be a guy that could come in and do that. Yeah. Take the control a bit. But the thing is,
he could easily be 6th man of the year, Derek.
He could be.
If it all goes well. He could come off the bench and absolutely dominate. And he's shaved his head now. He's in Jordan-esque territory.
He's done the Jordan. He's done the Kobe. So. He's done it before LeBron ever did.
He's full serious.
Because I would same as you. I would have him playing the same number of minutes, like still playing starter minutes, and Horford playing 20 minutes, but just as a starter. Just because I also think against teams that start big, I'd like having a bit of extra rebounding in like a Horford, just to shore that up a bit. But the one thing I did think is the guy I trust most outside of your top 6 is Peyton Pritchard. And he's already coming off your bench. Yeah. Do you want your top 2 guys off the bench to be Pritchard and Derek White, who are going to sort of play the same role a little bit? Whether you're better splitting their minutes a bit, have White start. If the one thing you do have already off the bench is a guy who can create his own shot, pair him with an Al Horford, I think would be, as you said, maybe would be more beneficial. And then come playoffs, if you match up against the Milwaukee, you can move Horford into the starting lineup to defend Giannis. Or if you match up against a team that does go big, you can bring Horford in.
Yeah, spot on. I think that's the right way to go about it. I mean, it's obviously going to be what the lineup is, but I think personally, if you've got Pritchard who's basically going to run the point off the bench, there's not much around him really. There's not. So if it could be Al Horford and they can do a couple of pick and rolls and Horford can drop a couple of threes, I'd suit that. I'd be happy with that. But I feel like if it was just Peyton and Derek sort of
it'd become
off the bench, and because ours started, you just think they're a little bit light. They're not so top heavy. So
you get a bit light, and you get a bit. It probably turned into my turn, your turn, on offense, and you don't have the defensive anchor.
Not so dynamic. It becomes a little bit predictable as well. So
that's it.
And playing a lot of small ball. Yeah.
And I do think there's a point as well where I think Joe Mazzulla he'll keep the rotation that there'll always be one of the Jays or Jrue Holiday on the court as well. Like it's not going to be a team where you run your starters and then you run your bench unit. I think it's going to be a very fluid rotation.
It's not a 2K job.
It's not a 2K. Right. It's not going to be 2K.
You're going to have a good balance.
You're going to have Kristaps
out there. The
Jays
are always going to be. Yeah. I mean, that Kristaps acquisition, providing he stays healthy, is a game changer because Rob Will, who I absolutely love and is a terrific defender, not much of a shooter.
No.
So, there's obviously a big comparison there between what he can't perhaps do and what KP can do in the paint, and make his own shot. It's and stretch the floor as well, actually.
I think I loved Rob Will, but there's a point with Kristaps. I think he's actually become a bit of a forgotten piece of this for Boston. Like we were talking before about how they're going to have an offense off the bench. I could totally see you start Derek White, Al comes off the bench, but then like 5 minutes in, 6 minutes in, you sub Al Horford in for Kristaps, play Al at center, and then you run a bit of a bench lineup later where Kristaps is actually let Kristaps go against the other team's backup center to start the second quarter with Derek White and Peyton Pritchard and let him cook. Like he won't be when he's with the starters, his role will be a good defender, shoot threes, but he can get his own. And you could put him in with bench lineups where he can go, pardon me, but he can go and really take control of the offense a bit.
Well, that's it. I think when you get all these types of players into the squad as well, right, on your roster, I think KP knows that in many ways his contribution, perhaps from a points point of view, is going to be a lot smaller than what it was previously. Okay, so if what you're saying is, he comes off the bench or he does a lot more with the bench and the rotation, he's actually more likely to be able to have the ball in his hands and score a lot more. So it can work that way without question. Because how do you farm it all out to these 5 players?
That's exactly it.
They're all going to have that contribution. So
I think I do love that their lineup, there isn't really any, besides the Jays, there's no really overlapping player in play style or what they provide. Like everyone's got something a bit different. You got, and it means that there really is you're hard to defend because it's not just, like, I think last year against Boston, it was just, take away the Jays' ability to drive, make them become playmakers, and things will collapse soon enough. Like, you can back that. This time, like, we take away their ability to drive. They'll just put Kristaps in under the ring, and they can throw him a post up. We double Kristaps, and you got all these shooters. Okay, we're going to try and take away. Suddenly, Derek White and Jrue Holiday are running all these pick and rolls, and it's like, there's so much more versatility to what you can do on offense this year. They're like, I think as a Lakers, I'm like, I don't want to face them because I don't know how to defend them. That's the sign of a good team is when I'm like, I don't want to play them. I can't think of a way that I could see working to defend them. Yeah.
No, that's a fair shout. And I think we'd get the Lakers too, just quietly. But that's something we can talk about off screen.
When we can throw fists. Any last minute, last thoughts on Boston you want to bring up?
No, just very bullish about what we can do this year. I'll leave it at that. I'm very, very happy with the acquisitions. I would miss Marcus, of course. Malcolm Brogdon, he's 30, 31. I'm happy for him to go to Portland. I actually think that'll work well in Portland. I actually think they're actually building a little bit of a thing out there. There's some stuff happening, yeah. And then Time Lord I'd miss as well. But Very happy with what's come the other way as well. And as you said, if we can maybe try and get another piece at some point,
I think you're looking pretty.
I'm quite bullish. I'm quite bullish.
I'm going to make a hot take. Before the season even starts, if you met in the conference finals, who would you have winning between Boston and Milwaukee in a 7-game series?
Well, it's a hard question for me to answer, given that I'm obviously pro Boston, but I still feel like
you can say
that would be. It was no. I still think that would be the case. We've got in the last couple, so. But the unknown is what Dame and Giannis can do together.
That's true.
That's an entirely different conversation.
I think it was so big for you picking up a Dame defender. You picked up probably the best Dame defender in Jrue Holiday.
Isn't that true? Right?
It's Milwaukee in trading out Jrue. They've also traded him eventually to their number one rival, which is, I think, just poetic. Meanwhile, Miami's over on the side having a sook.
It is. But that Dame and Giannis combo, that can be absolutely anything. And there would be no surprises if they pull it out of the hat and win everything.
I want to be.
It just all depends on how it goes, yeah.
I think both. Yeah, it really does come down to, I think, Boston, if they're healthy, I'd take. It's just, if they lose one guy or two guys, I just get concerned how quickly the depth becomes an issue. Because you can run a 6-man rotation in the playoffs. As long as you're healthy, you'll be fine in the playoffs. It's just, as long as you can get there healthy. It's going to be a fun season.
Well, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but I just think that can happen anywhere. If Dame went down, and we don't want to see any of the best players go down, but if Dame went down, what does that mean for the Bucks?
That's it.
So
ultimately,
ultimately,
any team are going to be, if they're injured, they're out. Like you have to rely on health, sort of thing.
Yes.
And so presuming health for all teams, I would say I'd take Boston at the moment. Just. My one concern probably is Horford is 37. You've lost Grant Williams and Robert Williams. How you defend Giannis, but also with Holiday and Porzingis, there is a bit less offensive load on Tatum every possession. So Tatum could sort of say, hey, as the leader, my goal is to defend Giannis this series, and I'm just going to take that role. Or Jaylen Brown might be like, I'm going to take that role on, because there's going to be less pressure on the Jays to be the entirety of the offense now that you have Holiday and Porzingis as well. So might see them take a step defensively. It's going to be very interesting. I'm very excited to see how the season goes. It's going to be fun.
Too, man. I'm so pumped.
I'm just so ready to have basketball again. I'm just counting down the hours until Wednesday. Dan,
well, we're Aussies, obviously, as we know, and footy season's ended. We need something else now, so let's get it going.
I've got almost 3 weeks. I need sport. I need live sport. I've been watching the cricket. Yeah. I've been watching the NFL. I need my basketball back.
Absolutely, man. Can't wait.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. That was so much fun chatting. I had a great time. I'm very interested to see what happens with Boston this year. I think it's set up to be one of the best playoff. If teams are healthy, that Boston-Milwaukee series, I just hope that we can get that series healthy, because that would be one of the best playoff series of all time.
That's all you want. And, for any team to win it, you want those games along the way. You want that particular finals, or you want that closeout for the East and for the West. If the Lakers were to get through, you want them to beat the Nuggets at the end there. I don't
want an easy run. I want to take them all. Right. I want that peak. It's going to be a great season. Dan,
it is.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube at the moment, go check it out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can find it at Fair Dunkem Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can find it on YouTube at Protecting the Paint. Dan, thank you so much for joining. We're definitely going to have you back to talk more Boston, talk more lists, talk more overreactions. It was just a bit too much fun today.
Thanks for having me, man. Had great fun. All the best with the podcast as well moving forward, mate. Looking forward to joining you again, and go the Celtics.
Mate, go the Lakers. Okay, everyone, have a great day. I'll see you next time. Adios.
Peace out.